Hello, welcome to the Vault. It is a Friday night, and my name is Jake. I'm your host, and I'm joined here with Mr. Mark. Hello, Mark.
Greetings, all.
Welcome everybody. I hope you're doing well here in North Texas. It's a bit of a cold one and getting colder, so it's kind of batten down the hatches time around here. I know any folks up north will laugh at us, but we got what we got, right? So uh, we've got some fun stuff ahead tonight that we've got planned. Just one piece of news, but later on we're going to jump in and talk about modding and kit bashing fifth edition using a book called Level Up Advanced 5e. We took a look at it a little bit last Tuesday, but I think we're going to do a little bit deeper on it because, Mark, you said that it was interesting to you and you thought you'd want to take a little bit closer look on it, right?
You bet. It was intriguing.
Yeah, they have a lot of things that are a good add-on for what I would call vanilla 5e at this point. So, yeah, so we had our gaming group was supposed to meet this weekend, but due to the weather, we kind of canceled out, and so we are kind of open for a free weekend. So that's good and bad. I get some time to keep preparing for the next thing that's on the menu, which is I showed that a little bit last time, which is the Forbidden Lands campaign I'm working on. So I'm continuing to fill that out and get that ready and get it in front of my players. So you guys, Mark, can start taking a look at what the options are, right?
Yep, that'll be something different. We haven't gone down that road yet.
Yeah, well, one of the things I wanted to do was make sure that I put all the kin and profession options and talents and things like that. Make sure that they're put out there on the Legend Keeper site, so that all the players can have a chance to look ahead of time before we have our first session and get an idea of what they want to do. Right?
Exactly. A little more familiar with it.
Yeah. So. Anyway, let's. I guess you want to take a look at the news item I had. It's really just a new release that I wanted to take a look at.
Launch away.
All right. Let me set my screen here. All right, there we go. And one more thing. Okay, so I got this in. I'm on Modifius's. I'm on their newsletter list. I couldn't remember the word. So their newsletter, email newsletter, and they send me new products and stuff like that. And so this last week, they announced that they come out with the 23rd Century Campaign Guide for Star Trek Adventures. And I know we haven't played that, and we don't really have too much of a Star Trek group, so to speak. But I'm a big fan of Star Trek, and I've kind of been a completionist as far as this line of RPGs goes, and have collected most of the stuff that's been put out. And it is while it is 2D20 with the meta currency stuff, I'm not too fond of it. It is a good game, even so, and it really they've done a good job of capturing how Star Trek feels and stuff, as far as I'm concerned. So kind of cool to see this. And the reason why is because for me, growing up when I did, the original series is what I started out with, but my favorite was the original crew movie era, right? So Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, Undiscovered Country, all that kind of stuff. And so it was kind of exciting to see this, you know what I mean?
How does this compare in terms of flavor? I won't talk about mechanics, but flavor and flair with the early FASA box sets that were out. The Star Trek system.
Well, I didn't own that one. What was the FASA one like?
I only got to play it once with a friend, so we're talking decades ago. In college, it had, I'll just say it seemed to have had a lot of the same adventure aspects that you would have expected in playing the series. You had specific roles, crew, and I'll just say it felt adventuresome.
Yes.
That the storytelling was an essential part of that one as well. I don't remember any of the rules. Again, being a much younger gamer, I don't think I would have objected to any rules. But I don't remember finding any rules particularly hard or not in line with the game you're trying to accomplish.
Well, I'd say from my perspective on this edition of it, you have a really good mix of adventure, both with away team type stuff, and you have a good opportunity for intercrew interactions and things. But what they really do is they set it up nicely to be able to create like episodic adventures that are structured very much like one of the episodes in the TV show. So it's a good way to experience the game, in my opinion, because it feels natural, like what you're used to watching, I guess. And the space combat that's included in it is just crunchy enough, in my opinion, without getting too deep into a war game type thing. So it definitely gives you the feel of commanding your starship. It gives all the players at the table something to do during starship combat, and the same thing for the away team stuff. Because one of the cool innovations they did is your main characters are like the department head, the captain, the department heads, the main bridge crew like you're used to in TNG or something like that. But then each player also has a number of supporting characters that they can also play. So these are usually lesser known people in the crew, like a Chief O'Brien or a Wesley Crusher even, or something like that, where whenever you go on an away mission and the captain doesn't go for some reason, or like your doctor wouldn't go, then you can use your secondary character to join with the rest of the people, so that you're not left out of any off scene on the planet action, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So this one in particular, it says the campaign guide presents the entire 23rd century for you to use in Star Trek adventures, from the growing pains of the nascent Federation in the century's early decades to the rising tensions with the Klingon Empire that sparked a brutal war from the 2256 to 57 time frame, and then onward into the bold 5-year mission period, and then the volatile latter third of the century after that. Says characters of every department from command to medical can use new rules and character options to deepen their gameplay experience, no matter the composition of your crew. The guide provides the means for you to play through some of the most dramatic and influential periods of Star Trek, which I agree. So, they include new optional rules for generating casualties and impacting characters with lingering consequences such as fatigue, scars, and trauma, which is good because that's something to me that's kind of been missing from the rules, is the kind of the long-term things that can develop on your character from time to time. Let's see. And then they give advice for playing in each various period, the time period. So along with sample focuses, traits, and values to consider adding to their characters. So this seems like from my opinion, seems like a good supplement to use if you want to play in any of those time periods, to give you some, not just player options, but some GM advice on how to structure and flavor it to fit what you're doing, right? So yeah, that's that. We won't dwell too much time on it, but I just kind of wanted to share that for those of you who might be interested in Star Trek. I know I am. I like it. If I had a chance to play it or run it, I certainly would. But it's not for everyone, but interesting nonetheless, right? you know, one more thing while we're talking about this, it kind of reminded me of something we talked about here not too long ago of Starfleet battles, right? So, you know, I think whenever I was in high school, so we played Starfleet battles a lot, and then at the time they had their own role playing game supplement called Prime Directive that they had out for that, and we tried playing that, but whoa, boy, it was rough. It was a rough game.
The Amarillo Design Bureau, right?
Yep, that's correct. And they're still out there. They're still making stuff for Starfleet battles and still cranking it out. You know, and I think there's some computer aided version too, and I think there's even support to play it, the tabletop version, virtually with Tabletop Simulator on Steam.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, that's that. Now, I kind of wanted to before we jump into the topic, I just kind of wanted to talk in general about, you know, modding D&D, and not just D&D and other games like that. But, you know, I talked a lot about that last time, but I would love to you know, get your perspective, Mark. Kind of, you've got plenty of experience of that too, and you know, maybe some of the things that you've done in the past that were pretty effective for you as far as bolting stuff on.
Sure. I'll just say up front, I think you can, as a DM and your party, you can mod any rule system. There, I think it's always.
You might bring the mic just a little closer, Mark. It's cutting in and out. Yeah.
How's that sound?
Yeah, it's much better.
All right. So first off, mods are fine. Figure out what your team wants, that you're playing with. Everybody kind of has a different feel on what they want out of a game. I don't think we've ever played a game where somebody went, it checks all my boxes. Every person at that table will find a weakness in whatever game it may be. So, but start off with mods are fine. I think one of the things I tried to do most recently is when we switched out and tried Pathfinder for several years. And one of the things that we were doing before Pathfinder is we had, me, had personally built a bunch of material for the Greyhawk world and add some flavor, class-based, and regionality that they were from. So you would get a little boost in a feat or something that might have been interesting, and it helped differentiate the class and the players depending on what they were playing. And so taking all of that into account, leaping from 1E, 2E, all the way into Pathfinder and changing all that material, quite challenging. Looked at some resources online, obviously, but built a large player guide with that. So you had extra background materials that weren't anywhere. Those things that made those classes just a little bit different, an extra feat, extra skill, whatever it may be. They gave them something to start with and something to grow into. I think that's the most recent thing I can think of really changed something up a great deal. So it seemed to have worked well. We played for several years using that approach.
Yeah, and it's a balance, right? Because you want to try to modify things to make people as happy as possible, but you also don't want to bog things down with stuff that's really just unnecessary, right? That ends up taking a lot of time, you know, essentially where the juice isn't worth the squeeze, right? So
Totally agree.
Yeah. So
an extra feat, an extra skill, something that gives them a situational advantage. That's without breaking the core mechanics all completely apart. Nothing with earth shattering or game changing in that respect. It's all about flavor and trying to build a little bit more into the setting, and in that case, letting them build a little bit more into their characters.
Yeah, I remember back in the 3rd edition days, they came out with a supplement, their 3rd edition version of Unearthed Arcana. And they had some good things in there, but boy, there's some stuff in there that was so wildly different that it just kind of broke things. And it was, some of those things I could tell just from my initial read. It's like, this will never work.
We never went full 3.5, so
Yeah.
I don't think we can fully
Well,
measure the impact.
Well, I mean, we kind of did, right? I mean, when we went to Pathfinder, that's essentially 3.5.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. To me, it felt so much different from what we'd been trying with
Yeah.
Midnight and everything that we'd learned at that point.
Right.
It was similar, but very different in application. I'll just say that.
Well, let's jump in and take a look at it. I'm gonna let me bring up my share again. One moment, because I didn't bring up all of the guides like I wanted to. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, so I think before we dive in, I want to just kind of to preface that this Level Up Advanced Fifth Edition, it is not just a book of rules that you can add into 5e. It is a full set of core books, and it's a full game standalone by itself, right? And they even have, and it's not just that, they even have their own published setting for it as well. I'm not familiar with that, but I don't want people to be mistaken to think that this is kind of just a compilation of rules and stuff that you can add on. I mean, you can if you want, but you can pull out of here, which is kind of what we're talking about, but you can just play it essentially out of the box, right? So just wanted to make sure that was clear. So Mark, as I'm going through here, I'm going to kind of talk about some of the things that I thought is cool. But if you want to, interrupt me if we come across something that you are really interested in or want to talk about more. So
all right, I'll chime in as necessary. Yeah. And by the way, I think I read in there they had two settings. One that was a little bit felt steampunk, and the other one felt a little more like high fantasy. They were talking about it.
There we go. Okay. So, I wanted to go through and we'll look at the table of contents here just for a second, but then I thought we would start by just jumping into a couple of classes. Maybe I'll let you pick a couple of them and we can go through there and kind of look at how they do it differently. But there is, before you get to the classes, I just wanted to point out that they do have a heritage section where you can pick your the race or heritage or what ethnicity, whatever you want to call it. But just to look real quick. So for instance, if we pick the elf, it does present your elven gifts, things that make it that make it different from others. And the one thing that I thought was really cool is that for each one of these races, they do have kind of a level up for them, so to speak. So when they reach 10th level, then you're an exemplar of elf kind, and you end up getting these things like elf side and a better dark vision and things like that. So I thought, personally, I think that's a really cool way to make your race more than just kind of a beginning set of a couple of stats, right?
Yeah, and they do that. I want to point out there's more than one elf in here. There's also the high elves. So
yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
they're not all under just one elf setting.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because it had the elf cultures for the different ones that in that, I think that's in, yeah, right here in the cultures. So you can further differentiate where you're high elf or wood elf and so forth, right? And then they have your backgrounds here, which is part of kind of the 5e thing where you kind of have your younger years profession, so to speak, before you got into an adventuring class. So pick a class, Mark. We'll jump in.
Why don't you go directly just to the fighter?
Okay. We looked. That's good. We looked at that last time and just kind of skimmed it. So, all right. So we jump over here to the fighter, and so here's their table, right? So you have the standard 5e stuff. You got your proficiency bonus, and you have your features there. And the standard way of doing hit points, you know, you've got your D10 per level plus Constitution modifier, and your basic proficiencies when you first take the class. So all your armors, your weapons, your strong saving throws, and then you get to pick your skills that your proficiency bonus applies to, right? But then you start diving into the class features, which are some of them are similar. So you'll have like your 4th level ability score improvements, and just like in 5e, you can exchange that for a feat instead of taking an ability score improvement. And then you have other things that are similar too, but for the most part, the fighter is pretty heavily modified here, right? So they do make it easy here in the equipment by kind of giving you several sets that are default that you can just purchase as a kit, which is nice. And then you pick your fighting style here at first level, and there's a lot of them here, right? So these fighting styles, and they don't, this does not yet tie into the maneuver system. This is really just picking your fighting style as far as like what weapons and things like that. Then you get into the combat maneuvers at first level. So you gain the access to them. So you get exertion pool. That's what I was looking for last time. That's what they call it, is your exertion pool. So your exertion pool is equal to twice your proficiency bonus. So going back at first level, you have 2, so it's 4 points of exertion that you have at first level. And you gain proficiency in 2 combat traditions of your choice. And as we talked about last time, those traditions dictate the maneuvers that are available to you. So you get a list of basic maneuvers, and then you get the maneuvers that are specific to your chosen tradition. And you use them by spending the points from your exertion pool, and you have to choose from the maneuvers that you picked at the level, and then you execute them and spend your exertion points in that way, right? Do you want to keep going here on the class features, or do you want to jump over and look at the maneuvers, Mark?
Go to the maneuvers. I think that's
okay.
One of the things that's really different about this game.
That's right.
It gives more options than just swing thy sword.
Exactly. And like we talked about last time, this is something that you can, if you like regular 5e or 5e from another setting, like I was talking about with Fate Forge, this is something that you can extract from here if you don't want to play this version specifically and put it into your game. And it's not, it's really not that difficult to do. So you just kind of look at the progression of the maneuver system as you level, and you slot that into your class progression of your existing system you're using. So you have your exertion pool, you have prerequisites for the combat maneuvers, and then these are your basic ones, right? So you've had these like grab and grapple and disarm. These are common to anybody that has access to combat maneuvers will get these basic ones. And just to give you an example, let's look at disarm. So it says you can use this to attempt to knock an item or weapon from their hand. If you're able to make multiple attacks with the attack action, this replaces one of them. They got to be within your reach. They make a strength or dex saving throw against your maneuver DC, and if they fail, you deal your basic melee damage, and they drop the item in their space. They have advantage if it is larger than you or holding it with 2 hands, which makes sense. And somebody smaller than you has disadvantage. So just to give you an example of what one of the basic maneuvers are. So they got knocked down, overrun, shove. And then let's look at, so we looked at this one last time. Let's move ahead and look at a new one, like this one. So biting Zephyr. So not every battle requires making close contact. There is an art to fighting from a distance, whether it's a few dozen feet or hundreds. So these are superlative ranged combatants, not only for accuracy, but also for the tricks that they're mastered to, that make shots possible that would normally be impossible. So it tells you here the name of the maneuver, the amount of exertion points that it costs, and any other prerequisites like this. Far shot is a stance. It's not just a one-time maneuver. So when you adopt a stance, it stays in effect until you adopt another stance. So it says when you, like this one says, when you use a weapon to make a ranged attack, you increase its normal range by 20 feet and long range by 50 feet. So it's, and then the double shot here, it allows you to use 2 missiles instead of 1, and on a hit you deal additional weapon damage die. So that's kind of cool. And then they stack up, see here, by degree. So here we're into 2nd degree, 3rd degree, 4th degree, and you can see that the number of exertion points that they require goes up as you go along too. So mirrors glint maneuvers. So this one has to do with reading, interpreting, and anticipating one's foe. So you're excellent at reacting to an enemy in order to gain the upper hand. So you get, like, you can see by the names here: leading throw, warning strike, wary stance, off balancing strike, take weapon. These are very flavorful, in my opinion, fighting styles that you, or not a fighting style, but a tradition that you pick to really make yourself stand out, right? Mist and shade maneuvers. So I would assume that's for like a roguish type. Feinting and leading enemies into crucial mistakes they're ready to exploit. Rapid current. Embracing rapid blows and agility, warriors of the rapid current tradition know how to use speed to its utmost to defeat a foe. Razor's Edge, Sanguine Knot. There's a bunch of them. Anything in here you wanted to look at in particular, Mark?
No, the number was overwhelming, but my takeaway was, depending on how you roll up your fighter and I roll up my fighter, no 2 fighters are likely to look or feel the same.
Not even close.
Yeah. The odds are just astronomical. You would see 2 people at the table with the same character sheet choices.
Yeah.
So for me, that looks like the ultimate in, if you will, I keep saying options, but it's a literal buffet of features you can apply to that character to distinguish them and bring to light whatever that vision of your character is. There's enough in there. You should be able to paint that picture fully with these choices. And if not, again, I think we talked about this last episode. It probably wouldn't be hard to sit down with the DM and come up with another set of choices that may not be reflected here, but would have equal value and pertinence to your character that you could add and build upon what's already here.
Yep, that's exactly right. And as you progress and look at the fighter, so at 2nd level, you pick your steely mean, which is how it influences how people perceive you or how you see them. So closed helm style, heroic flair, watchful eye. So for instance, watchful eye, you have advantage on insight checks made to determine hostile intent or predict violence, and your passive perception increases by 5. So, when people kind of say what their demeanor is of their character, this is a great way to mechanically delineate that demeanor, right? You can have a mechanical way of expressing that personality.
Exactly.
And yep.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, then here you got your maneuver specialization. So you can choose to master a combat maneuver that you know, which reduces the exertion cost. It increases the DC of saves against the maneuvers and so forth. So it actually builds on what you've chosen earlier.
Yeah. So it isn't a one and done, and these don't look like they'll get stale.
Right, right. Then you have martial lore at 6th level, uh, indomitable, which is familiar. That's something that applies in the earlier. And then your reputation score it begins to take effect into things. And all of these, I mean, we can go on, but all of these stack as you level up to further differentiate you as a fighter, right? And then
Exactly. And those things that they harken all the way back to the basic set in 1E, where
Yep.
at some point fighters became lords and had domains. Well, you see it now
Yes.
manifesting here as you level up.
That's right. That's right. And so this type of in this game, this type of character choice is echoed throughout the classes. So, for instance, the Herald, which is their version of the Paladin, you can see here that they have combat maneuvers as well. So many of the other fighting classes have access to combat maneuvers. So it's not just the fighter. Anybody that swings a sword is going to have a chance to really make themselves stand out.
This one was really unique in that you don't have the pool of points like the fighter does, but you can swap off your lay of hands, I believe.
Well, you
that or spells, I can't remember.
They do have spells, but
you don't have the exertion pool with this character.
Let's see.
You start off with 2 points, and then, if I read it right, you actually can swap out your spells or your lay off hands to burn additional exertion points.
That's right. You can expend spell slots to gain exertion points that go into your pool, which is a really, really cool way of making that flexible, right?
So it's not going to be overpowering because you'll never probably have more exertion points than a pure play fighter.
That's right.
But you've got some flexibility here as the Herald, aka Paladin, to pull off some pretty flexible things.
Yep. And you have your traditional Paladin stuff like sacred auras and lay on hands and different things like that. But they do have some additional things in here that make them unique, like their sermons that you can do. Mm-hmm. And if you looked at the Bard, there are some bardic performances that you can choose that allow you to do similar things to that, to like affect like in public speaking, right?
Right.
So that's kind of the classes. Was there anything else that you want to look at on the classes before I?
The only one that caught my eye was the Barbarian. They call it a Berserker.
Yes.
That is probably some of the best fleshed out barbarians I've seen.
I agree.
If you look at that, it's meaty in terms of the choices and options you've got there. There's a lot of crunch for people that want to put all kinds of fine points to their Berserker.
Well, because in as far as if you look at movies and history, the number of different types of Berserker types are myriad. So you've got your typical Conan stuff. You have like Xena. You have, and then you have things like Amazons and
right
and other and
or,
then
or
if
your,
you want to
your Viking, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
or even like an African tribal barbarian. Sure. And you can make that with this class. You can actually do that.
So if anybody's always felt the unloved barbarian expansions. These guys evidently played barbarians, and you can tell put a great deal of thought into trying making it
Yeah,
more than just Hulk smash.
that's right. And as we go along, I wanted to kind of highlight equipment here because they did take some cues from a little bit from like Warhammer. So they've added in weapon properties like parrying weapons, defensive weapons, things like that make weapons a little bit more unique than just what the die is that you roll for damage, right? And they did the same thing for armor. So if you jump over here to, where is it? Yeah, so armor has material properties, the AC, but then it also has things like disadvantage on stealth checks and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. And one of the other things that I like that's been missing is the materials table here. So if you wanted to have like bronze armor, it tells you how to modify it to reflect that.
I haven't seen that kind of stuff since 2E.
Yep, exactly. Multi-classing. I just want to touch on this a little bit because again, this is another bolt-on thing that you could introduce pretty easily. And I like how they have a table of prerequisites. So if you wanted to multi-class into a different career, you don't just choose it. You actually have to meet a minimum prerequisite. But the other thing that they do here that I really like is that they provide you guidance on how to govern the second class, specifically around like class features and how combat maneuvers work when you meld two classes together. And things like the extra attack, or how they don't stack, or different things like that. So it gives you some advice and guidance on how to make sure that two classes work together appropriately, right? And that you don't end up stepping on each other or duplicating features. And then if we jump into ability scores, the ability score section, this is where it tells you how to make the standard checks and stuff. But I wanted to give you an example of another bolt-on thing that you could use. Ability check criticals. I thought this was fascinating. Loved it. So this is an option that when you roll a 20 outside of combat on some other check, it gives you a mechanical way to enjoy a pretty cool success feature. So look at the arcane ones. So like Arcane Surge, you gain temporary hit points equal to your profession bonus. And these are all, you could roll a D6 for these, or you could just, the DM could pick it, or whatever you want to do, but that's really cool. So, and then if like here on Facts and Discoveries, so skills like Arcana, Culture, Engineering, when you're trying to learn, know your character knows something, then it shows that this was one of your areas of study. And, for the next 24 hours, you gain expertise die on ability checks using this skill, so long as the checks is for similar subjects. I mean, so you've got that, you've got medicine area, physical skills, social skills, and you have a crit fail table for each one of those if you roll a 20. To me, this is a lot of great flavor that you could easily tack on to your existing game without a lot of effort, really.
Yeah, I thought it was good early in the book. They stressed that a natural 20 is something to be celebrated.
Yes.
And didn't matter if it was combat or non-combat, barring situational modifiers or for whatever reason, a 20 should be considered successful.
Yep.
I think their example was a baby kobold, though, in manacles is not going to break out, even on a 20.
Exactly.
But they said an adult one, I want to give them that chance where 20 works.
And then if we jump over to combat, sprinkled throughout the combat section is a lot of things that you can bolt on. like the massive damage and instant death rules, uh, the fatigue rules over here. All of these things are additional options that you could throw into your combats to expand the flavor of it, right? And the same thing even on just the actions that you can undertake. So one of the things that I liked here is they threw in dodge, right? You can take a dodge action. So until the start of your next turn, attacks against you are with disadvantage if you can see the attacker. And you make dex saving throws with advantage. So those simple additions of additional actions like that to me is really, I mean, this for me is what gets me excited about D&D again, and the D20 system in particular, because I got to be honest with you, Mark, you know how I feel about it, that I've been pretty disillusioned with D20 for a long time, but this kind of stuff here, this gets me excited.
I'm not going to disagree. And having simple things like I'm going to disengage versus every system since 3E came out. Well, somehow whoever you're fighting comes up with an extra attack just because you disengaged, but you didn't have the disengage feat.
Yeah.
Okay. First off, I shouldn't have to spend a feat just so I can leave combat. And two, I think you and I both have had that discussion. Why does the thing or person I'm fighting suddenly get one extra attack out of their whole action economy after they burned all their attacks, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So these things take some of those rough edges out. And again, I'll say it this way, combat seems to flow a little more naturally.
Yes.
Things you see in the movies happen, right? It didn't swing and a miss. Sometimes that was a swing and a dodge. Right?
So let me ask you, did you look at the spells?
I did not take time to look through the spells.
So you'll like this one. All right. Okay.
I love spells.
Yeah.
More power to the wizards.
So here's what they've done with spells. And this is so needed. So they went down here and they've added sections for most spells for casting at higher levels. So you can cast spells at a higher level than what its base level is, and you get a nice little bonus. So Acid Arrow, you increase the spell's initial and ongoing damage by D4 per slot above second. How cool is that, right? And the other cool thing, and this is even better to me, they've went in for each spell and they created like a rare variant spell for the base one. So for instance, the Gable's Blinding Acid Arrow. A creature damaged by the spell makes a dex saving throw or is blinded until the end of its next turn. And that's way cool that and so this is all throughout here. You'll see this sprinkled in for different things like casting alarm at higher levels to increase the duration, improved alarms, improved mental alarms.
Interesting.
Yeah. So let's jump down. Let's look at our old friend here. The Magic Missile. So there we are. Cast at higher levels, evoke one additional dart and target up to one additional creature for each slot above first. And then there, Krevin's Ruinous Magic Missile. Creatures damaged by the spell make a strength saving throw or are rattled until the end of your next turn. So to me, what would be cool is, let's say that you are handing out treasure, right? And you're rolling random treasure and you roll a scroll and it's a magic missile scroll. Well, guess what? Now it's not just regular magic missile. As the DM, you can say, no, it's this Krevin's Ruinous Magic Missile, a little bit more powerful, a little bit cooler. So it's going to make scroll finding even more interesting, right? Because you can say that it's unidentified, right? And then when you identify it, you'll know.
Or you find a wand of magic missiles that's being upcast.
Yep, exactly. That's right. I didn't think of that. So if you had a wand that was created at a higher level, then it's already using those additional those enhancements for the higher slot casting.
Yeah, all of a sudden, that bag of wands that always gets left at home might make a trip out into the real world.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so that way you don't have to, you're no longer having the conversation about the Gatling wand device that you create that you just wrote. You just crank the wheel and it shoots magic missile over and over.
I think that'll be the next task my artificer takes on.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about that. Now let's jump over and look at the Trials and Treasures book. So this is kind of their DM guide. And I know you didn't get a chance to look at this, but I'm going to take a look at a few things here that to me are just exemplary, right? So the first one is this exploration system. Okay, so this is so in an exploration system, they give you the first thing here is journeying. So they ripped this, and I'm just going to tell you, they ripped this right out of the One Ring. Okay, but I'm gonna give them credit here because they took it from the One Ring, and just like the name of their book, they leveled it up in a great way. So they have given you your travel pace. They have talked about resting in havens. So, for instance, that it uses the fatigue rule that we talked about earlier, that you can build up fatigue for different things. Well, you can't recover from fatigue until you rest at some place that's safe and secure, right? So it represents the journey. It takes a long journey and makes it into a little mini game, so to speak. So you can track your supply. And then they talk about what regions are and what regions have effect on your movement. It has effect on the actions that you can take in the region that you're traveling through, encounters, and then it talks about journey activities, right? So as you're journeying, your character will take on certain things, like somebody can be the cook. Somebody is, you can spend your time trying to befriend an animal. You can cover your tracks as you travel. You can gossip to people that you meet along the way, scout, rob people, I guess, hunt and gather. So, I guess it depends on the type of party that you got going on, right? But, rob them or pray, I guess you can pick one of the two.
Or do both, I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah. If you're a hypocrite, you can do both. And so here it talks about like the regions and the type of region and the type of things that you can find in it, which is, we've seen encounter tables before, but it ties it into this journeying system. And then they give you a good example here. Where is it at? Like Feywood, Fiery Hellscape, all that kind of stuff. And then at the end here, they give you advice on how to create your own regions and how to do that for yourself. And they also tell you how to use dungeons in the same way, right? So you can not just use the journey rules in overland stuff. Let's say that you're not doing a small, a one-page dungeon. Let's say that you're exploring the Underdark, right? You're looking at hundreds of miles of traveling underground, right, Mark? So you can use those travel rules for doing the long-term journeying through places like that.
I'm liking that because that looks and feels like it would have be able to create a different experience, like doing Vault of the Drow and Descent into the Underdark there.
Yep.
It had, I would call, a basic outline of everything you just discussed, but with no details. None of the tables.
You broke up just a little bit. You might
Encounter.
want to say that again.
We're used to lots of random encounter tables, but not the structure about the drudgery of the trip, the roles you might play along the trip. This is bringing a little bit more of the role play formality to the table for me there. So interesting. Yeah. I like that.
And
flavor.
And again, to fit with the theme that we're talking about, this journey system, this is something that you can extract whole cloth from here and just bring it right into your other game. And the same thing for the next thing I was going to show you, exploration challenges. So what they've done is they've come up with commonly encountered situations that we almost always face in, blinding blizzard, the bridge of stones, right? So let's take Bridge of Stones as an example. It gives it a challenge rating in DCs, a fast-flowing 150-foot wide river crossable only by a series of slick, unstable stones. And it describes it, and then it tells you what's going on, like boulders. An athletics check can be made to lift and brace one of the boulders, granting advantage to checks made to cross the river. A nature check reveals that the waters will be lower tomorrow and crossing will be less hazardous. Ropes checks to cross the bridge are made with advantage if a rope is tied across the river. And then it tells you possible solutions here. Make a group acrobatics check to cross. It tells you what happens on a critical failure, success, and critical success. So it lays out a bunch of these commonly encountered exploration challenges and treats them as mini encounters that you get experience points for, right? And what the cool thing is that you can mix and match these with your monster encounters to increase the challenge level. So let's say that you're fighting a challenge level 8 demon of some type. Well, you can add the choking smoke to it, which is challenge 11. And so not only do they have to fight the demon, they have to deal with the choking smoke. And then at the end of the combat, they get awarded the experience points for both, right? So, I mean, it is a great way to build encounters with these little modular exploration challenges. And then at the end of that, of course, they have a great section to build your own. Tells you how to set them up, what challenge ratings, different things, how to set the DCs for things. So if you think of something that's not there, then you can easily build it yourself. Again, another module that you can easily strip out and put in your own game. There was something else in here I thought. Oh yeah, that's right. Adventuring rewards. So here they talk about how adventurers get experience. In D&D, you have the typical stuff from, killing monsters. And they also talk about treasure that you can give as rewards and things like that. But the neat addition that they added here is the boons and discoveries. So in addition to experience and treasure, you can award these to your players for accomplishing things. So, an animal accompanies you for the rest of the region. The blessing was what I thought was cool. So the gods are pleased with your party's actions. These boons are sometimes the result of divine favor or reflect approval of local communities. So like 4, the party witnesses an aurora in the night sky that rejuvenates them, granting them benefits of a long rest after they complete their next short rest. So these are really amazing ways to give your characters rewards that are not just treasure, loot and XP. So it's actually, actual story related type of stuff. Followers, herbs and medicinals, all kinds of things that you can give them. Information on a secret route, other secrets, shelters, supplies. There's an endless number of things here that you can gain, right? So just to touch on supply, so it says here equal to 1d4 plus 1 supply per adventurer. So let's say you find a smashed wagon and it's got that. So what they're talking about, Mark, is supply is food and water, stuff like that. So that, it allows you to get more, living material, so to speak.
Yeah, it was very dungeon crawl or wilderness crawl oriented.
Yep.
There were tools for tracking food and water consumption.
Sure. And the last thing I was going to touch on is going to show you the monster manual here, specifically about not really any specific monsters, but what I wanted to show you was how they built them. So let's just take a look at a demon real quick, and we'll look at the Baylor. So of course they have things like behavior and signs and things like that, which is pretty cool. So the behavior you can roll to see what it's doing at the time that you find it. The signs that it may have, as you approach the lair or whatever that you can detect. But then when you jump over to the creature itself, you have your standard stat block, right? It's got everything that you expect. But the cool thing here is the actions table. So it tells you with detail all of the types of things that this kind of creature will do. So, it has a fire whip, a whip crack, and so forth. And then in the combat section, it will tell you how it uses it. It uses its fast flying speed, instinctive teleport, and its fire whip to keep would-be ranged attackers within its fire aura. It uses whip crack on clusters of foes, and if obviously outmatched, it uses instinctive teleport and flies away. I mean, how cool is that? Pick a monster that you think they might have here. We'll take a look at it, Mark.
Look up Hobgoblin.
A hobgoblin. Let's look. There, hobgoblins. So there's the legend and lore. You've got encounters of different types of hobgoblins at different challenge rating levels. The signs, lone behavior, group behavior, and then there's your actions. And then you have them delineated by different types. Your base hobgoblin with their long sword and long bow, how they attack, what their nature is to attack in combat. And then you have different levels. You've got your hobgoblin captain and a variant for the hobgoblin warlord. So again, I mean, it gives a really great way to show you what it does. Can you see that?
I had to lean in and read a little bit more. So yeah, it looks good, and I think I'm just looking at their maneuvers. So they get some skills.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have some skills. They got their formation movement, things like that they can do. So it really is a great way it allows you to run the monsters without having to also decide what its tactics are going to be, right?
Yeah. And I like that you got that combat description. I don't see anything that looks like the old morale value, but I'm guessing you got the combat description. At some point, it'll tell you when they break.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Not every monster fights to the death.
Right. I could have swore I saw something that had that, but I'm not seeing it now. So, but anyway, so that's kind of that. And then, so again, at the end here, they tell you about building your own and NPCs and different things like that, and also conditions. And then the other thing that I noticed here that allows you to bolt these on to kind of follow in the theme of what we were talking about is that they have included a compatibility section. So it goes and tells you about the things that are unique to this system and how and what its conversion is over between original 5e and the new name in this version of the game too. So it gives you just a little bit of advice on how to handle that. So anyway, was there anything else between these three books that you want to take a look at before we wrap up, Mark?
No, not that off the top of my head, having only looked at the first one. The player options and the ability to construct characters there that follow whatever whim you're thinking looked pretty powerful.
That's right.
Obviously, they didn't have every species under the sun. But again, I've got a feeling it wouldn't be that hard to build a base and then leverage all the materials that are already there.
Right.
And
And the
bring
thing
in,
I kind of want to end with is I'm just using this Level Up Advanced 5e as an example. There are many additional supplements for not just 5e, but for other even OSR games. You can go and mine these things for ideas. So if you let's say that you hear that Castles and Crusades has a really great system for blah blah blah. Okay, you know, pick what you will. It is. You can go in there and take a look at it, and you can pretty easily extract things like that and pull them into your own system. But you know, some of them are harder to do than others. But what I really love about this game is that you can play it out of the box as they've written it, but they have designed it in a way that you can easily extract a lot of these things and bolt it on to your other game. Or you can, here's another thought, you can do it in reverse. You can take some things like the setting or things that you like from other games and tack it onto this one, right? I mean, this is Mark, wouldn't you say that this is probably flexible enough that you could, I would imagine you could probably take Forgotten Realms or Greyhawk or even Mystara and tack it onto this one.
Oh, undo, you know, without a doubt, it would be a labor of love to convert some of this, give it that. Not a Forgotten Realms expert, but I don't see anything that would stop you from doing that. And again, the monsters are kind of like a happy return to old school detail there.
Yeah.
All of that looks like it's adaptable, whether, you know, and what pieces the DM regardless wants to take and run with.
Yep. Well,
like the spells, fell in love with the character creation.
Yeah, the character creation is amazing. It is really cool. It is. But yeah, anyway, take a look at this, take a look at other things. If you don't, I would encourage you as you know, you viewers, I would encourage you to take a look at what you're playing at the table. Is it working for you? Is something a little lackluster to you? Could something be better, more interesting? Would you like help with more rules in certain areas to help you fill in some of the narrative space that's at your table? You know, especially like the journey system. Do you just gloss that over and go from town to adventure site? Well, you don't have to. You can put the journey system in there to make it interesting, right? And you can end up creating a little mini adventure on the way. You don't just have to go from one to the other. And you also don't have to do the reverse of it, of do it in excruciating day-by-day detail. You don't have to do that either. You can kind of do a mix of the two, but that's just an example. I would just encourage you to identify the things that aren't working for you, the things that you would like to do better, and then go out there and look for alternatives where you can pull that stuff into your game and really make it pop with just a few extra bolt-on rules, a few extra flavor points, things like that. So that would be my advice. Anything closing for you, Mark?
Nope. It was a good walkthrough. You teased us with that here a couple of weeks ago. I'm glad you took the time to go through in more detail and expose what looks like a wealth of material, a very well thought out gaming system itself. But I'm intrigued about trying to pick apart the best parts of it too.
That's right. Yeah. Well, so if you're interested in this one in particular, then the links are going to be, the link for it is down in the description to jump over to the Level Up Advanced 5th Edition website. And you can grab any of these books. They're available in hardback as well as PDF. And they've got a whole bunch of other supplements to go with it. Setting, adventures, and things like that if you're interested. So, well, thanks everybody for staying on this long. If you did, I hope you enjoyed what we brought you tonight. And if you did, I would encourage you to give me a subscription if you think that you'd like to come back for more, or give me a like on the video. But anyway, Mark, thanks for being part of the show tonight, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye, Jake. Bye, y'all.
Yep. Bye, everybody.